As the government's Thursday deadline nears, the authorities are firing on all cylinders to urge trainee doctors to return to hospitals after they left their workplaces to protest medical reform. After that, the government is likely to accelerate moves to take legal action against doctors ignoring the deadline. South Korea and the U.S. are set to hold their Freedom Shield combined exercise next week. It'll involve various field drills as the allies focus on tackling North Korea's nuclear threats. South Korea's fertility rate and birth figures both hit fresh lows last year, fueling concerns over the country's chronic population decline. It's February 28, 2024. This is Newscenter. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. I'm Yoon. We start with the Thursday deadline nearing amid the standoff between doctors and the authorities over medical reform. Just one day before the final call for doctors to return to work, the government has directly delivered return-to-work orders to the homes of trainee doctors through in-person visits. After that, it's likely to accelerate moves to take legal action. Lee Soo-jin reports.
There is only one day left until the deadline set by the South Korean government for doctors to return to work. Officials from the Ministry of Health and Welfare visited the homes of trainee doctors in person on Wednesday to deliver return-to-work orders directly. The orders had previously been issued through mail or text messages, so the direct delivery signals that the government has completed all legal reviews for judicial proceedings against trainee doctors who do not return to their posts by Thursday. The South Korean government on Monday issued orders for trainee doctors who staged walkouts in protest of an increase in the medical school admissions quota. The walkouts have led to cancellations of surgeries and other treatments, leading to concerns about continued delays. The direct delivery of return-to-work orders comes just one day after the health ministry filed a complaint with the police against 5 doctors, current and former senior members of the Korea Medical Association, for violating local medical laws and obstructing justice. This also marked the first legal crackdown by the government since the start of a mass walkout about a week ago, a move widely seen as a warning to trainee doctors. Those who do not return to work by Thursday have their medical licenses suspended or face additional legal action. South Korea's medical law also stipulates that doctors and other medical personnel who do not respond to return-to-work orders can be subject to up to 3 years in prison. The health ministry plans to begin tallying the number of trainee doctors who do not return to work next Monday, the first working day after the Thursday deadline. Once the count is complete, the ministry is expected to file a complaint with the police that will officially initiate legal procedures. And the police are expected to issue arrest warrants for those who do not respond to police summons without reasonable cause. Lee Soo-jin, Arirang News.
South Korea's population continues to shrink as the total fertility rate and birth figures both hit all-time lows again last year. Our Park Go-dun has this report.
South Korea's population saw a further decline last year. According to preliminary data released by Statistics Korea on Wednesday, the number of newborns in 2023 was at an all-time low of 230,000, down 7.7% on year. That figure has been decreasing yearly since 2015. The total fertility rate in 2023 also fell to its lowest annual figure of 0.72 per woman, a fall of 0.06 from the previous year. An official from Statistics Korea predicts that the number could fall even further.
Our forecast for the total fertility rate in 2024 made last year was 0.68. We think it will possibly be around that number.
The figure for quarter 4 was 0.65, the first time the total fertility rate fell below 0.7 for any quarter. The official added that fewer marriages during COVID-19 attributed to the shrink of the total fertility rate in 2023, and that there's a possibility that this could affect the figure for this year too. But with a slight increase in the number of registered marriages last year, the total fertility rate could rise in the next 2 years. Data also showed that the number of deaths last year dropped slightly by around 5% on year, with a total of over 350,000. In 2022, there had been a surge due to COVID-19. Still, with the number of deaths exceeding the number of births, the country's total population last year saw a natural decline of more than 120,000. While saying that the population will not be able to rise back quickly, another expert says that efforts do need to be made now.
The result of low births for the last 20 to 30 years will be seen for about the next 3 decades. So there is the need to come up with policies adjusting to the shrinking society.
This, he says, lies with policymakers to come up with birth encouragement policies. Park Gon-woo, Arirang News.
Shifting gears, South Korea and the U.S. will kick off their annual Combined Freedom Shield exercise next week to better respond to evolving nuclear threats from North Korea. The 11-day training will involve almost 50 field training exercises, twice the number conducted last year. Our Foreign Affairs correspondent Pei Yoon-ji has more.
Starting next Monday, the military forces of South Korea and the U.S. will hold their major combined exercise, the Freedom Shield. In a joint press briefing on Wednesday, the two countries explained that the computer-simulated command post training will focus on conducting multi-domain operations and countering North Korea's nuclear operations.
The Republic of Korea and the United States militaries will conduct the Freedom Shield exercise to increase combined readiness and strengthen combined defensive posture for 11 days, from March 4th through the 14th.
They said the training will be based on scenarios that reflect diverse threats within the security environment, such as drills detecting and targeting cruise missiles. They've also decided to increase the number of field training exercises on land, at sea, and in the air to increase interoperability.
There will be a total of 48 combined field training exercises taking place all across the Korean Peninsula, including joint airstrike training, joint tactical live fire exercises, joint air-to-air shooting, and air-to-ground bombing exercises.
This means the Allies will conduct twice the number of field exercises in the first half of this year, compared to the same period last year. But this year's exercises won't be limited to just the U.S. and South Korea. Member states of the United Nations Command, including Australia, Canada, France, and the UK, will also be taking part. And the Neutral Nations Supervisory Commission will observe the drills based on the Armistice Agreement. The combined exercises are expected to anger North Korea, as the regime sees joint training as an invasion rehearsal. There is a possibility that the North may engage in provocations during the exercise period in protest. Pei Yoon-ji, Arirang News.
Defense chiefs of Seoul and Washington talked via phone this morning, having reaffirmed the alliance amid Pyongyang's continued hostility. Similar talks are expected when Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol meets his U.S. counterpart in Washington in the coming hours. Our correspondent Kim Jong-sil reports.
With North Korea continuing its military provocations, South Korea and the U.S. are enhancing their defense and security cooperation. On Wednesday morning, Defense Minister Shin Won-sik held phone talks with U.S. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. The two discussed shared defense and security priorities on the Korean Peninsula and underscored the strength of the ROK-U.S. alliance. The South Korean Defense Ministry released a statement saying the two defense chiefs reviewed the security situation on the Korean Peninsula while reaffirming the alliance's strength. The top priorities were Pyongyang's recent missile launches and its artillery barrage fired into the sea last month. In early January, the North fired hundreds of artillery shells into the West Sea near the maritime border between the South and North. The defense chiefs also discussed illegal arms transfers between Pyongyang and Moscow, noting that strengthened military cooperation between North Korea and Russia threatens peace and stability not only on the Korean Peninsula, but also in the international arena. They agreed to take strict measures against the threats posed by recent Moscow-Pyongyang ties. Meanwhile, Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol will meet with his U.S. counterpart, Secretary of State Antony Blinken, in Washington on Wednesday local time. The two will likely discuss issues including economic security, while also touching upon extended deterrence against North Korea's nuclear threats. Cho is also expected to ask the Biden administration to listen to South Korean companies' concerns about the Inflation Reduction and CHIPS Acts. Kim Jong-sil, Arirang News.
The United Nations has denounced North Korea's supply of weapons to Russia. On day 2 of the latest disarmament forum in Geneva on Tuesday, France also urged North Korea to abide by UN Security Council resolutions against its hostile weapons emissions. Ukraine, for its part, also condemned North Korea's support of Russian invasion, highlighting the loss of innocent lives and senseless destruction. Back on Monday, South Korea's second Vice Foreign Minister Kang In-sun called on the regime to cease its nuclear and missile programs and to return to nuclear disarmament talks. President Yoon Suk-yeol today called on South Korea's military to take an immediate and overwhelming response to North Korea's provocations, vowing to strengthen deterrence and trilateral security cooperation with Washington and Tokyo. This came at a commissioning ceremony held at the Cadet Military School in Gwaesan-gun County, Chungcheongbuk-do Province on Wednesday, as the president thanked and encouraged those being commissioned in the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines. He warned that the regime may continue to engage in provocations and psychological warfare to disrupt South Korean society, especially ahead of its parliamentary elections in April. He said during these times, the military must unite with the people to resolutely defeat such attempts from the north. Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg today met with LG Electronics CEO Cho Ju-won to discuss enhancing cooperation in the extended reality business. The meeting came during Zuckerberg's 3-day visit to Seoul after he arrived in South Korea on Tuesday night for his first visit in a decade. The two discussed the development of XR devices and the possibility of future collaboration in AI development. Cho forecasts that XR devices produced from the collaboration with Meta are expected to be commercialized in 2025. Before concluding his trip, Zuckerberg is expected to meet with President Yoon on Thursday. In other news, Seoul's top diplomat Cho Tae-yeol is in the U.S., as we have mentioned in our previous report. He has met with officials there to reaffirm commitment to regional security and broader economic challenges. Choi Min-jung explains.
South Korea and the U.S. have reaffirmed that their economic cooperation has further expanded their alliance beyond military security. Seoul's Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yeol met with the U.S. Director of the National Economic Council, Lael Brainard, on Tuesday at the White House to discuss the two countries' economic synergy. According to the Foreign Ministry, Cho assessed that economic cooperation between the two countries has strengthened based on the Seoul-Washington Alliance and the 2012 Chorus Free Trade Agreement. He also evaluated that the U.S. government is creating results beneficial to both countries, thanks to close consultation with the Korean government in implementing economic policies, such as the CHIPS and Science Act and the Inflation Reduction Act. Echoing the sentiment, Brainard said she appreciated the alliance had grown beyond military security and that it's now working to respond to global economic uncertainties as well. She also stressed that South Korean companies operating in the U.S. and American companies operating in South Korea are contributing greatly to creating a stronger supply chain ecosystem as well as quality jobs. The two sides agreed to continue cooperating closely in the future. To do that, Minister Cho requested that the U.S. ensure that South Korean companies continue to receive treatment and incentives commensurate with their investment scale and contribution level in the U.S. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
U.S. President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump won the Michigan primaries on Tuesday, but early results highlighted some of their political concerns ahead of the November election. Chung Eun-ju explains what those are.
U.S. President Joe Biden and Donald Trump won their respective primaries in Michigan on Tuesday. Results from the primaries so far indicate that the two are on course to face off in November's presidential election. Early results from Michigan, however, revealed some of their biggest political vulnerabilities and concerns. Mr. Trump has now swept the first 5 states on the Republican primary calendar, but there have been signs of struggles with some influential voter blocs that have favored former United Nations Ambassador Nikki Haley in previous contests. Ms. Haley's strongest performances on Tuesday night came in areas with college towns like Ann Arbor, home to the University of Michigan, and suburbs around Detroit. Mr. Trump, meanwhile, has underperformed with suburban voters and people with college degrees and faces a faction within his own party that believes he broke the law in one or more of the criminal cases against him. President Biden's victory in the Democratic primary also came with a warning as an uncommitted campaign organized by activists disillusioned with his handling of the war in Gaza made an impact. Michigan has the largest concentration of Arab Americans in the United States. In a statement, Mr. Biden did not directly acknowledge the uncommitted effort but praised the progress his administration has made with Michigan voters. Despite a recent tweak in rhetoric and a call for a pause in fighting, Biden and his team have stood by Israel's right to defend itself. Meanwhile, according to the Hamas-led health ministry, the death toll in Gaza is at nearly 30,000, mostly women and children. As the civilian death toll continues to rise, so too has the pressure on President Biden to publicly push for a ceasefire. 정은주, Arirang News.
On the international front, talk of possible troop deployment to Ukraine has been dismissed by the EU and NATO. The U.S. also rejected prospects of American troop presence in Ukraine, while Russia was quick to issue an ominous warning. Lee Seung-jae has the details.
The issue of sending troops was raised at a meeting in Paris on Monday, where European countries discussed ways to support Ukraine in its fight against Russia. There, Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico raised the idea of troop support for Ukraine.
Several NATO and European Union member states are considering sending troops to Ukraine at a bilateral level.
French President Emmanuel Macron followed up, saying that there is no agreement on sending troops to Ukraine, but nothing should be ruled out, further stating that everything must be done so that Russia does not win. Looking to avoid further complicating the situation, EU and NATO member countries quickly expressed that they have no intention of having their countries send troops to support Ukraine. They include the leaders of Poland, the Czech Republic, and Hungary, who during a meeting in Prague strongly shot down the idea. EU and NATO member nations like Germany, the United Kingdom, Italy, and Spain also rejected deploying soldiers. The Pentagon on Tuesday also expressed an unwillingness to send military forces, despite being one of the biggest supporters of Ukraine during the 2-year-long war.
We have no plans to send U.S. service members to fight in Ukraine. The president has been pretty clear on that, and that continues to be our position.
Meanwhile, French Foreign Minister Stéphane Séjourné on Tuesday clarified Macron's comments that Paris could send troops to Ukraine, saying the troops could be used in specific ways, such as mine clearance, while not directly fighting against Russia. Meanwhile, the Kremlin sent a stark warning to NATO, saying that any troop support for Ukraine would inevitably result in direct conflict with Russia. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Back in this country, soon text messages warning of emergencies in South Korea will be sent out in both Korean and English. The Interior Ministry announced on Wednesday that it's revamping its emergency text alert system to include critical information in both languages. The ministry explained this will help non-Korean speaking residents and visitors to take necessary responsive measures to warnings about earthquakes and fires, among others. Multilingual disaster alerts have been offered for a decade via the Emergency Ready app mobile application provided by the government. But the new text alerts will be sent to all mobile phone users registered in Korea, improving information access in urgent situations. K-pop boy group 17 have achieved a new feat in the global music industry. Their album FML recorded the highest worldwide sales last year, topping the global album chart 2023. The boy band won their first Global Album Award on Tuesday, presented by the International Federation of the Phonographic Industry. Representing over 8,000 record labels across the world, the IFPI compiles streaming data, the number of downloads, as well as physical record sales to rank artists. South Korea's K-pop groups accounted for half of the top 10 spots. It's the beginning of spring, but the morning air is still cold. The temperature in Seoul this morning was 3.2 degrees, bringing the chill of late winter. Tomorrow morning, the last day of the February, will be very similar to today temperature-wise. Seoul will start the day at 3 degrees Celsius. However, unlike today, there will be less temperature fluctuation as daytime highs will not move up too far from the lows. Rain will start tomorrow morning from Jeju Island and the southwestern regions. As a low-pressure system from the southwest passes, rain is expected to expand to the Chungcheongdo provinces during the day and stop at night. As for the amount of rain, 10 to 40 millimeters of rain on Jeju Island and 5 to 20 in the Chungcheongdo provinces and the south of the country. Tomorrow, Daejeon and Daegu will start off at 2 degrees. Daily highs in Seoul will get up to 9 degrees, along with Chuncheon, Busan, and Jeju. And Daegu and Gyeongju, 8 degrees Celsius. The spring frost will ease off from Saturday afternoon, but there is a possibility of strong winds and rain or snow in the central region. That's all for Korea. Here are the weather conditions around the world. That is Newscenter for tonight. Thank you for watching. A panel session up next.